Coming into spring football, we had an idea of what we thought each position looked like. Well, how do we feel about it now? It's stock up, stock down, spring football edition, and we've got some breaking news. I'm Rajeev. He's Justin. Here we go.
Welcome to the Bucky Report, your destination for all things Wisconsin Badgers. Authentic takes.
Oh my God.
Game analysis.
Touchdown Badgers! Ring one up!
And discussion from the fan perspective. Woo-hoo! Thanks for joining us and on Wisconsin.
Welcome to the Bucky Report. We are your hosts, Rajeev and Justin, back together on a Sunday evening to talk about all things Wisconsin Badgers. On today's show, 1 week remains of spring practice, and the storylines are plentiful. Justin and I will look back at where our heads were coming into the spring and answer the question, is the stock up or down by position from where we thought it was going into these practices? What do we hope to see from the last week of practice and next weekend's spring game / open practice? We also have some breaking news we're going to start with today. We are at the Bucky Report on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. If you like what we're doing, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button so you know when we make new content. Breaking news just now, 2026 quarterback Ryan Hopkins, 6'4", 200, currently now registered to play at Modern Day High School, one of the best high schools in the country, has committed to Wisconsin. Now, it's a long time. He's got a lot of things out there. He's got a decent offer list: Arizona, Cal, Michigan State, UCF, Oklahoma State. Not necessarily the big boys, Justin. What do you like about him? What are some things that you're excited about?
Well, I mean, let's just start and be honest here. The kid can flat out fly. Like, he can legitimately really run. I would say he's probably the fastest quarterback we've had since Russell Wilson. And I think there's a chance by the time he leaves here, he might be the fastest guy if it all comes together. If he matures and puts some muscle on, he could become a 4.4 guy. I'm not saying flat, but he could be a guy who gets in that range. I like the touch. I like the ball placement with him. I think it's a B+ arm. So I think it's probably an above average college arm, but he doesn't have his arm isn't as big as Burgess, but I absolutely think that it's a high end arm. He's got more than enough arm to play the position here. And between that and the mobility, you really have to like what you're starting with the toolkit. Like, the kid has a ton of ability to move himself in the pocket. Does a nice job of keeping his eyes downfield. Did not play in a great team last year at J. Sierra, but now going to Modern Day, which will give him an opportunity to really step up and prove himself.
Yeah, Modern Day is obviously it's one of the best high schools in the country. That, along with Bishop Gorman here in Vegas, where Tretch played, you get some of these large programs. And yeah, he's going to have a lot of good competition there. Yeah, he's got a really nice arm, and I feel like he doesn't really have to work that hard to throw the ball for 40 yards downfield. He has a quick, very, very quick release. Mechanics aren't tight and stuff there, but I mean, that's all going to get cleaned up. But he's a natural, really good pass to the ball. Keeps his eyes downfield as he moves. He's very mobile in the pocket. Obviously, Justin said he's a 4.5 speed. Right now, he's a 10.97 100-meter dash, which is fantastic, by the way. So we've got our first, QB in the class. We've talked. I know I was gone last week. I was in London, so sorry for missing last week. I went to London. I went to Dublin. Fantastic stuff over there. And yeah, love my European trips to watch soccer, which was okay. It was we won one, we drew one. I'll take it. But I know you guys talked about Burgess. You talked about some other potentials, but I think Hopkins is a nice add to the class, and we'll see if we can keep him. But yeah, really good breaking news to start off. We are going to touch on recruits at the end as well, just because I wasn't here to talk about Reed and Elam's, but I do want to talk about that a little bit.
So one last thing I do want to say though is I actually do think that he's a better fit than Burgess for our offense. I like the mobility and the things that Grimes likes to do in the QB run game. I think Hopkins fits that better than Burgess does, but I think it's hard to not fall in love with the arm strength that Burgess has. He's got a legit NFL arm, but Hopkins is as good, in my opinion, just a different type of good.
Well, and when we talked a little bit before the show, you said it was a good fit, but it's for the Grimes system too, right? Like when you have someone that is that mobile, that can do that many things, being very multiple on offense. And I just think that oftentimes when you have a guy that has speed like that, he doesn't have that vision and that like crisp kind of passing that Hopkins does on his film. Now that this is just sophomore, junior film. It's not, we're going to see a lot when he goes to play at Modern Day, but He's got a very, very quick release and a really, really nice deep ball that looks pretty effortless. And that's a nice thing to see when you're playing at that competition level.
I mean, he can throw the deep out to the opposite hash. So,
yeah.
I mean, that's all I'm asking for quarterbacks here.
We've
had a couple of guys, Locke couldn't do it. So, I mean, it's nice to see somebody who can get that ball out there.
Yeah. Breadman 1069 says Hopkins is due for a huge ratings bump. Don't be shocked if USC and Oregon offer him this fall. I completely agree. I was just talking to Justin before the show. I'm surprised you don't see some of these big names like USC's, the one I mentioned as well. Oregon, even the other Big Ten schools like the Ohio States, the World, Michigans. And I do think that based on what you see on his film now, if he plays well at Mater Dei, I agree. He's going to have a ratings bump. And that does mean that we're going to have to compete with other powerhouse Big Ten schools, especially West Coast schools. He's a West Coast guy. He's from Orange County, California. So, USC right in the backyard. Of course, there's other ones as well. Oregon, certainly. We're going to compete. We're going to anyone we're going for on the West Coast, we're going to be competing with Oregon. There's no doubt about that. But hey, I mean, pretty good pick.
I'll take him. He was for a long time until Burgess got offered. He was my top guy.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, so 10 practices so far, I believe, if I'm correct. I think we're on 10 or 11 practices so far that are down for spring. We've got a week left. Spring game or the open practice is next. Are you going to that game, Justin, by the way?
I will be there.
Nice.
One thing I will throw out there, USC has their quarterback already.
Oh, that's good. I like that. I will not be, as you know, I live far away in Las Vegas. So I will not be up there for the spring game, but I'm sure Ryan will be there. I know Justin will be there. That's great. Good for them. I can't wait to hear all about that. But coming into the spring, Justin, we sort of had our thoughts. We did a show to kind of talk about where we were kind of going into the spring, what we were excited about, what we wanted to see. There's been quite a lot of storylines, some positive, some negative, some issues, some things that we're pumped about. So we're going to do a little stock up, stock down by position. We're also going to take a bunch of listener questions today too. So get your questions in the chat. If there's anything you want to talk about, I feel like I've been gone for like a month, even though it's only been a week and a half, but there's been a lot of news that popped up when I was gone, and I was getting all these text messages in the middle of the night from Ryan and Justin, like going back and forth. I'm like, it's 3 a.m. here. I have to silence my phone. But there was a lot.
Yeah. One thing I will say is it's good to have Rajeev back because he actually catches the questions in the chat a lot better than I do. Justin is not used to being the one running the show.
Yes, Justin is the talk of it. I'll do the production stuff. Zach Bart says, I'll be there next week and hope to see some of you there. Yeah, you should definitely. Zach Bart is a great guy.
Ryan and I will both be there for sure.
Yeah, we got to hang out with Zach at a game last year, which was fantastic. Okay, so I'm trying to get my stuff here ready to go. There it is. All right, so stock up, stock down. So let's start on the offensive side of the ball, Justin. Quarterback. We'll lead off with some quarterback. You see up the positions up at the top. We're going to hit all those in that order if you're watching on YouTube. Again, now to preface this, we're not necessarily saying are they better or worse than last year. We're saying stock up, stock down from where we were coming into spring. Now, the reason we're doing this obviously is you get a lot of spring storylines. The spring's about to end, and we're not going to see these guys until the fall, right? So how are we feeling about them right now? Do we feeling good about them, not so good about them coming out of spring versus going into spring? We'll start with quarterback, Justin. Where are you stock up, stock down on the quarterback room?
I think I'm up on
or it can be a hold in the middle, theoretically.
Yeah, I think I'm up on this. It sounds like Edwards is taking the position well. The more I've heard, it sounds like he has been pretty consistently locked in as opposed to last year when we were hearing a lot of up and down stuff and that it was a competition. It sounds very clear that Edwards is the guy and that he's effectively every day has proven it. It also sounds like O'Neal, after kind of stumbling a little bit early, has been kind of taking steps and really starting to look better. And there's been, people talking about him being the most athletic out of the quarterbacks.
Yeah, I'm pretty much a hold to slightly up on this one, just because I feel like I expected it to be a strong thing. I expected Billy Edwards to come in and be far better than any quarterback we've had for the last couple of years, especially one's named Braden Locke. So yeah, and the fact that he is clearly seamlessly fell into the Grimes system for at least what we've seen so far, what we've heard about. Ryan's been to a practice. I know you're going to see them next week. So I think I'm pretty much where I expected. I expect this room to be really good, and I think it's holding there for me. There is no concern. I think that's the thing. Going pre-spring to now, I'm feeling good about this room. I'm not concerned about it at all. I think we're in a really good spot there. Which I think is where we need to be, right? I mean, there's not. Jason Geldon says, shouldn't we be stock up in most positions? Yes, but not all of them.
Ideally, there's going to be a big one that we came in being up on that. I'm going to flat out say I think we might be down a little bit now.
There's going to be some that we are going to talk about, which is that's why we're doing this. I think it's an interesting topic. So let's move on to running back. I'll go first on this one. I'm up on running back because everything we've heard, first of all, Yakimelli looks like he's rounding into his typical form, 8.2 yards a carry last year. Expect him to have another big year. But Dylan Jones has been a bit of a darling in the spring. Ryan did a show about him. I'm not sure if you were on that one with him or not, but yeah, like really, really good stuff from Dylan Jones. He looks like he could be an every down back. And we knew that it was going to be Dupree and Jones kind of leading the line, but I'm hearing things like Jones could be a star, right? Nick Osen wrote that exact verbiage, like this guy could be a star. When you talk about a room that has Dylan Jones and Darian Dupree and Cade Yakimelli and other guys behind him, I'm feeling really good about that particular room because mainly of the emergence of Dylan Jones.
Yeah, I think that's exactly how I feel. I know I've been a huge advocate for Dupree, but I honestly did not think coming into this spring like he was the guy who was number one. And I didn't love that him being the primary number one back. I just don't think his skill set is conducive to being your lead back. I think that he's a guy that you want to work around a guy like Dylan Jones, who in my opinion can be a top end stud running back in the Big Ten. And I think Dupree can be a guy who really adds to that and can kind of round that out and balance that room. And it sounds like Atuka's actually been doing really well with some of these guys dinged up a little bit. He's been coming in and performing well. So when you have four guys that you feel comfortable putting out on the field and being able to give you quality reps in the game, I think you're in a good spot. Now, ideally, we'd like to have one more guy, but I think that so far so good. I don't think we feel like any of these guys are going to be busts.
I think you put it really well there. We don't think these guys are going to be busts. We know Dupree's not a bust because we saw him last year. Doesn't look like Dylan Jones
came on
is a bust.
Strong at the end. We
know Yakimelli's not a bust. And I mean, I think Atuka, you're right. So that's a really good way to put it. I think that's a good way to sum it up there, which is great. Will Hanna also says Atuka was a stud Saturday. So yeah, really, really like that room that we are seeing. And yes, Bo Dragon is in there. Bo Dragon always, he says, I feel like I was summoned. Good to see you, bud. Okay, so let's jump to tight end. Some news coming out of here. You probably saw things on Twitter, on Discord, wherever you saw that there was a report that Tanner Koziel could be transferring. That was something that was a tweet, and then it was later deleted. I have no other information. Yeah, we don't know. As of now, nothing has been reported. I would be shocked and frankly a little bit upset if he was leaving. I mean, we're talking about a guy that we've been pretty hyped about for a while, 94 catches last year. I don't know if it's a fit. I don't know in the world of NIL, when other schools get talking to guys like this, you never know what can happen. To be fair, I don't know unless you have other knowledge, Justin. I have no other knowledge other than the fact that there was a tweet. There was someone that was put out there that says he was entering the portal. It was deleted, and that's pretty much where we stand. But there definitely is some high alert here about potentially losing Tanner Koziel.
I don't know that I would say anything until because we can't validate that account. So unless, I mean, it could be anybody. It could be somebody. It could be legit. It could not be. Right now, what I will say is based off of this particular group, I'm up on it, and I'll say it has nothing to do really with Koziel. I think that the way I look at this one is it sounds like we know what Koziel is, but it sounds like Ashcraft took a step and is a legit guy who is capable of being a starter at this point. He kind of got that position by default the last couple of years. I think that this year he could actually be a solid tight end for us. It doesn't mean he's going to be a plus player like Koziel is, but that is far and away better than what we've had the last couple years. And also, Acker is going to be a guy that I think actually people are going to be impressed with what I think he's going to be used as this year, because he's going to be used a lot more than I think people think at this point. Just being motioned out of the backfield, being used as kind of a fullback. People are talking, somebody did mention Jay in Toronto saying Acker would be number 5 for the running backs. He probably is. If they needed another guy, another body, he's probably the guy that steps in there. But he's going to be used as a fullback anyways. So, he's a guy that I think we trust the athleticism as being a guy who can split out and cause some problems as a mismatch too.
Yeah. So for me, tight end, look, and I know that, like I said, we don't have information other than the fact that there was smoke out there. And generally when you see these things where there's smoke, there could be fire. I don't know. I'm really, really hoping that this is total fake news, and that'd be great. But I'm down on this because if we lose him at all, it's stock way down, because I thought that this was going to be a killer room for us with Koziel. Now, if Koziel's there, I'm fine on it. I'm holding, right? I'm certainly not necessarily up. Yes, I hear you on Ashcraft, Grant Steck. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that could be doing something, but I need to see what's going on with this. I'm concerned. Again, we have no other information other than what you've all probably seen, and there's been rumblings and things like that maybe there's something there, but
so let's put a caveat on this one then. Yeah. Where are you at if Koziel's out?
If Koziel's out, I'm way down on the room. If Koziel's in, I'm holding. Nothing's really like jumping off the page. I mean, yes, I know Ashcraft has taken a step, and I think that's good because he clearly has competition with Steck and of course with Koziel there. But this room has been a little bit weak for several years now. So I'm going to be holding until I see something. So, I'm interested to see what you see when you go there next weekend. Sure. But I don't know. Tight end is an iffy position for me. I can't be stock up until I see.
I think it's absolutely down. I would say if I were to grade it, there's 2 different ways for me to look at it. If we're talking from last season to this season, it's stock up, because I think Ashcraft sounds like he took a step, so he's going to be a more productive player if he's the guy. But you're making a transition from a guy who potentially could be an all Big Ten tight end to being a guy you're hoping can be a solid starter. And that could be a substantial difference.
Fair. And Ashcraft has a lot to prove, right?
He does.
As far as I'm concerned. We haven't seen it. We were excited when he got here. We haven't really seen it yet. So I'm a little bit weary of that.
I will say he's almost daily coming up on the blurbs we're seeing from practice, and he was not doing that in prior seasons. So in my opinion,
that's a very fair point.
That's a good thing, but we also don't really know what he was, because let's be honest, the previous 2 years we were allergic to the tight end.
That's very fair. Ryan says, I agree with Rajeev. Got to be stocked down if Koziel's gone, because we were counting him in the group to start spring. No doubt about that. All right, let's move on to wide receiver. Justin, lead off on this one here. How you feeling?
Yeah, I think stock way up on this one. This might be the position that is on the offensive side of the football. I think this might be the position that sounds like it's the best so far. Ballard sounds like a hit. Sounds like Brooks is having good days. We clearly didn't know what Hilton was going to be coming into the spring, and he's been a breath of fresh air in that room. You have a true freshman who might get in the rotation there. It sounds like Burrows is flashing, which we would occasionally hear a day here and there, but he's more consistently sounds like he's actually making plays. So you have multiple guys who I think are capable of being cycled in here. And I think the change in scheme is a big part of that. There's just less guessing for these guys, what they're supposed to be doing on a certain, given play. And I think that's helping them be more deliberate in what they're actually doing out there, allowing their actual physical tools to play up and not let their head get in the way. But yeah, I think this room, there are bodies in there, and there's enough versatility in terms of body types for us to have a lot of options that I think are going to help us this year. I really, this might be the best year we've had in a bit. And I know we've said that reasonably lately, but I think the running game is going to help this room a lot this year.
There was a comment on the show that you did with Nick earlier this week about something about and I forgot. I should have pulled it up before the show today, but it's a fair question. It says these guys were hyping up Phil Longo's offense pretty high last year. Now they're hyping up Ryan's offense. It's a fair point. And I think we've all said we got to see it to believe it. But I'm with you on this one. I don't say way up. I say up because of two names. Jaden Ballard you mentioned, and the other guy is who is my darling in the class along with Mason Posa? Yes, Eugene Hilton. Eugene Hilton is going to be a dude. He's absolutely going to be a guy. He comes from the pedigree of his father, T.Y. Hilton. That's a thing. That really is a thing. He has really shown out so far in spring. I like to hear that. You couple those guys with Vinny Anthony, Trech Kahuna. You mentioned Burrows. It's a deep room that looks to be pretty strong, but ultimately Ballard is ultimately Ballard and Hilton are the things coming into the spring. We weren't really sure what we were going to get.
Yeah.
They both seem to be really flashing, which to me is why it has to be up, right? I mean,
I think almost on a daily basis we hear about Ballard catching a 40-yard pass.
It's
so he's the physical blowing the top off the defense.
The physical tools are so critical with that guy. Yes, I realize that he didn't show out at Ohio State, but we're not Ohio State. So if we can get Ohio State's guys that don't play in their first line, fine, we'll take them and we can make them guys that are going to be starting for us and can be really big, impactful players. Okay, I'll take this one first here. Offensive line. This is going to be a stock down. We have some injury stuff. Kevin Haywood did not play. Again, we don't really know. We have no information. Someone asked earlier, I started any update on Haywood. No, we don't have any update on Haywood. We're hoping to try to get that at some point. But what we know is he's injured. We don't know the extent of it. But what I will say is this. Kevin Haywood is going to be a star for this team. And I wish him, obviously, anyone who's injured right now, we wish them well. It sucks. I mean, this is just what it is, right? This is football. This is going to happen. We don't know what the injury is. We don't know the extent of it. We do know that he is injured. There is something. And I'm sure in due time it'll come out. Obviously, we're talking about kids here. We don't want to, speculate this kind of stuff. But Kevin Haywood was the guy that we've all been pretty much, a massive fan of since he arrived on campus. He was going to kind of be one of the most critical pieces of the line. If you have an injury there, you have Leighton Nelson now coming in to potentially get some first team snaps. That to me is stock down. It's totally injury related, Justin.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I believe I said in one of our earlier shows that I felt like there's a pretty good chance that Haywood would work himself into the all-conference type talk. And with him being out, there's nobody that I feel that way about that's going to come in and fill that. Regardless of potential, I don't think there's another tackle prospect that we have on the roster that is that level of between physical tools and athleticism as to what Haywood is. There's some really good guys, but they're probably true freshmen. And I don't anticipate them, they're going to take longer than Haywood is at developing. He's a top end guy. I will say this, sounds like Mandel is really pushing at that guard position. That is a plus because I do think, I think the offensive line can still be solid to good, even if you have to eat up Haywood being out this year, if you're in a really good place in the other four positions. But you've got to find somebody who can at least be average at that tackle spot or you're going to be in trouble. I
mean, it's kind of a massive spot, right? You're talking about left tackle. You're talking about covering Billy Edwards' blindside. It's massive. And so Zach Bart says, I hope the injury isn't a major one and it doesn't affect his game long-term, right? Like I said, we don't really have any more information. And of course, with something like this, we're not going to speculate. We're just going to tell you that we don't know, but when we do, and it's public, we obviously will talk about it. Certainly on the show, we're massive, massive fans of Kevin Haywood and wish him well. Bo Dragon says it's Wisconsin. They should be able to plug and play O-linemen. I hear what you're saying, Bo. The problem is we're not there yet. Now, I think that the recruiting classes that Fickle has put together for the next couple of years, it is going to be there. We've got a lot of good sort of crop of linemen, but those guys are young. Kevin Haywoods of the world, they can come in and play as a freshman and get meaningful minutes there as a freshman. That's rare. You don't see a lot of offensive linemen doing that. And I am very concerned about the left tackle position if Kevin Haywood is gone for any considerable amount of time, because literally you're talking about Leighton Nelson, who, had his injury.
Like 40 career snaps at left tackle or something like that. I mean,
this is left tackle here. This isn't just like when we talked a lot about Jack Nelson and the issues that he had a couple years ago, but then last year, look what he did. He came back and he played really well. You got to have a left tackle that can do that. You're right about Mandel. You're right about, we have a lot of youth on this team, Bo, but I don't think you can plug and play. Haywood is not a guy that you can just replace. Like, you're going to have to really find someone, and someone's going to have to step him. Now, if that's Leighton Nelson, and maybe Haywood's going to be fine. He's going to be back for the fall. We don't really know, but we know that he's out right now. So
yeah,
it's
a lot of the older depth that you would expect to have somebody to slide in is always injured. You know, we had Benchwald has been out most of the spring. But he's mostly been playing at guard. You have Barrett Nelson. He is a guy who is supposed to be kind of in that role. He's nowhere to be seen. Like, when you don't have your upperclassmen available to potentially fill in these roles, that's when you don't have it. And let's be honest, there's nobody that we look at that is a true freshman that you're going to say, we're going to throw you out at left tackle. We didn't do it with Haywood. And Haywood, the only guy that I put on the same tier as Haywood out of these last two classes is Mandel, and it's at a different position. He's not that level of top tier guy at tackle. I think he can be a really good tackle at right tackle, but I don't want him playing left. And his best position from a skill set standpoint is guard. So I really think Leighton Nelson, this is the biggest problem that we have about this, is if he would have been healthy last year, I would feel so much better about him in this situation.
I agree.
Him coming off the injury makes it so much scarier, because you're like, he's just getting his legs back under him after missing a year.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mentioned that earlier. Like, you're talking about a guy that we don't know. Yeah. Steve Kneebone says, could they move Mandel to tackle if needed? Not left tackle. I don't think. Maybe he plays right tackle. But
I saw somebody mention bumping Brunner out there and then putting somebody else at guard. That might be a possibility. But I don't know. Has Brunner played guard in the last 3 years, or tackle?
I don't think Brunner's played tackle that I've ever seen, and frankly, I just don't feel like he has that in him. I mean, he could, obviously, but there's a little bit of a different skill set there, and I don't think he really has that sort of athleticism that you kind of need to play that tackle position. I would be concerned. I mean, I think that this is a concern. That there's no doubt about it. Like, it's you can't lose a guy like Kevin Haywood and just be fine, okay? Because he's the starting left tackle. Like, that's all there is to it.
Well, the one thing you'll say is you have time. You're going to have somebody you're going to shove at that position for the remainder of spring, and they're going to get all the reps at that spot. And then they're going to get all of fall camp if that's what the issue is. If we find out that he's out for the year, then you're going to have somebody that's going to be able to step in and really going to have to bust their butt to get up to speed quickly.
Yeah.
And they might be able to do that.
Agreed. Over 150 of you watching us live, thank you for joining us. If you missed the beginning of the show, we did lead off with some breaking news that Ryan Hopkins, QB out of Orange County, California, soon to play at Mater Dei, has committed to Wisconsin. Go check out us on Huddle. It's good. Again, just if you're joining us, we have a lot of people that have joined us since we talked about Ryan Hopkins. So check out the beginning of the show if you want to hear us talk about that. Certainly a guy that we did have a question in there. Justin, you may have answered this earlier, but are you higher on him than Burgess? You think he's a better fit, right?
I think he's a better fit for our offense. I would say if I was going to go by raw tools, I'd probably have Burgess higher because of the arm. But in our particular offense, I actually think his mobility plays up and is better for us.
Yeah.
Because let's put it this way. I'm more concerned with having somebody who can put pressure on a team like Ohio State with their legs than I am about finding somebody who's going to throw it all over the field, because we don't have the receivers that are going to be able to carve up a team like Ohio State. If we had better top-end receiving talent, it might be Burgess. But Wisconsin's always going to be a team that you're going to have maybe one guy who can be your dude, and you're going to have to find other ways to make plays.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll check out that if you want to hear us talk a little bit more about Ryan Hopkins committing. Let's get back to our stock up, stock down. On to the defensive side of the ball, Justin. Defensive line, where I feel like we're both going to be in a certain spot here, but where are you at with this?
Based off of everything we're hearing, it sounds like way up. We're constantly hearing positive news on the defensive line and what it did. Let's put it this way. Haywood was out, and I think we both feel like he's going to be a really good player, Haywood. The defensive line just chewed up the offensive line. Like, they just dominated the entire day to the point where it sounds like the offense struggled to even be functional. It did get a little bit better at the end of practice, but you have multiple guys who are popping that they brought in the portal who are actively making disruptive plays. And it doesn't sound like these are schemed up things where they're bringing a ton of blitzes and stuff like that. It's just guys winning one-on-one. We've heard about Perkins, obviously, Charles Perkins. We've heard about Parker Peterson being a guy who can really bull rush in the middle. Brandon Lane popped this last week. You have
Suggs.
Jamel Howard
Suggs, yeah.
has
Jamel
been
Howard
showing up a little bit and finally taking some steps. Suggs, you've obviously had Michael Garner. He's been a guy who has been really doing some things on the edge, and same with Corey Walker. These big bodies, if they can be disruptive at all to go along with the size, is going to go leaps and bounds into making this a better. And I think what people need to realize, you need to stop trying to compare this to what we were doing under Leonard, because it's apples to oranges at this point. You could almost compare this more to looking at like a 4-3 defense and trying to do what Iowa's doing as opposed to what Ohio State's doing or anybody else, or what Wisconsin used to do. Because we're not running speed rushers off the edge anymore, and guys are going to stand up. Like, the scheme is completely different.
Yeah. I'm up on this, but with a hesitant up, only because I've been excited about the defensive line every year since I've been doing these shows, and I've been disappointed every single year in the fall. So am I excited about them? Yes, because as you mentioned, Perkins, Peterson, Suggs, Garner, guys that have all shown up. Hearing anything about Jamel Howard is great, by the way. I read that Payne or Nick Osen wrote on 247. So yeah, that's great to hear that he's actually doing something. I think Nick might have read, or it was Payne, I'm not sure who it was, said something to the effect of, this is the Jamel Howard we all expected to see when he came to Wisconsin. So there's that. But the number of bodies and the number of bodies that are playing well, I understand why you're stock up. I'm pretty much, my official answer is I'm going to hold here because, I mean, again, I'm pretty jaded by this group. I'm pretty, I feel like I've been let down too often. And last year in the spring, we were like, oh, the line looks like it's gonna be better, and the line sucked. So I don't know.
Well, what I will preface it with is I'm not buying into sack numbers and tackles for losses necessarily being up, but I do feel like they're going to be much better, more effective against stopping the run. So that's what I'm taking away from this so far. And it sounds like there's legitimately been times where they've struggled to move them off the point, whereas not something that we heard or saw much of last year.
There's a very funny comment here that had me lose my train of thought. Mr. October says, can someone translate what Rajeev is saying to me, please? I can't understand this new thick British accent at all. I wish I had a thick British accent, man. I loved it when I was over there.
Just like Nate on
Dude, it was fantastic. I loved it. I love going to London. If you haven't been to London, go check it out. It's fantastic. Okay. We've split up the linebackers because, obviously we've got outside and pass rushing. I meant to do the outside first. Let's do outside first because were kind of talking about the line, right? So let's go to the pass rush here. How are you feeling about this? This is an interesting topic of discussion, I think.
I'm going to say right now that I'm probably at push. Like, I don't know what to take away from spring ball with that position. And I don't try. Like, if we're talking Walker and Garner, I think that they're going to be effective at what we're asking for them. I just don't know what to take away from the pass rush. Like, I need to see it this coming season before I'm going to trust anything that I'm hearing in terms of guys screaming off the edge and picking up sacks.
So I'm going to be stocked down on this, and I'm going to be a little bit mean, I feel like, in this moment. I think
that's fair.
And I just feel like this is going to sound bad, and I'm going to preface it by saying that I don't mean to criticize this person, but I've heard a lot of good things about Daryl Peterson again. And when I hear that Daryl Peterson is the best outside linebacker, I get concerned about the room. I'm not trying to shit on Daryl Peterson. He works really hard. He's a good player. He is a journeyman player for us. I appreciate everything he's done. He can't be our best outside linebacker. And I'm not saying that he's going to be, but I'm reading a lot of things about how Daryl Peterson's showing up. Good for him. That's great. But it sends the message to me, Justin, that the room isn't quite where it needs to be, right? We haven't seen Mason Reiger. I'm concerned about this. I definitely feel like the defensive line should be better. Now I said I was kind of holding for spring, but I do think it's going to be better than last year. I don't know about the pass rush. I don't know that it's really going to be better. I think Corey Walker has been a nice addition, which is a reason that I was maybe potentially looking at holding or going to stock up. But I hate to say it, but when Daryl Peterson is a guy that I'm hearing a lot about, I'm not very happy about that.
I agree with you. And that's why, like, when I say push, like, my expectations weren't really high. So when I say push, it's like, yeah, there's plenty of room for me to go up, and I haven't heard enough for me to trust it, and that might just be simply because I think we're kind of in prove-it mode with that group. Like they could get 10 sacks a day, and we'd be sitting here like, I'm not buying it from the guys that I've seen in that room. Like, I need to see them actually do it against somebody that matters.
Yeah, I mean, I will say I'm jaded. Look, Jason Geldon, what happened to believe with Rajeev? Jay in Toronto, I thought you were the optimist. I am the optimist. And as we get closer to fall, you're going to see it really come out. But this is the time that I do get a little concerned because, and I'm be honest, this is really stems from last year coming out of the spring. 2 years ago, we were excited about the spring, and look what happened. Last year, we were excited coming out of spring. Look what happened. I'm going to just be a little bit more reserved this year because I feel like I've really been hurt by what this football team has done to me. And I do think we're going to be better. Offensively, you heard me stock up. I'm very stock up on the offense in general because of what Billy Edwards is doing and with the running backs and the wide receivers. I'm feeling good about that, and Grimes in general. But this defense, we talked a lot about them last year. We know how Justin feels about Tressel. We know how I'm concerned, but I hope I'm wrong, and I hope the outside linebackers do a lot better. Let's go back to inside linebacker. I'll start here. I'm fine with this. I'm up on this because I expected Allegro to be a star, and I've said that before, and I think he is. It sounds like he's making plays left and right. Him and Tackett Curtis is healthy, and he's playing well. And I think that is a really great, inside starting group. And then you got guys like Cooper Catalano that look like they've shown up. And that's exactly the kind of thing we need to see from the young guys, right? And, I mean, there's just so many guys that can do really good. The Antron Turner, I think Allegro is going to be an all Big Ten player. I think Allegro, by the time he's leaving here, could be an All-American. I think he's the next great middle linebacker. So I'm stock up on this because I expected it, but I'm happy that I've read the things that I've read coming out of the spring. I'm really happy with this group.
Yeah, I think to me, the reason why I'm up on it is Catalano. Because I expected both Allegro and why is his name?
Curtis?
Curtis and Tackett to be really solid to plus starters in the middle. I did not expect Catalano to necessarily be a guy who was going to come in and show ability right off the bat. I think we would both agree that Mason Posa was the guy that we thought was going to come in and kind of set the world afire. Now you may be potentially hit on two guys that are going to be really good players. So we'll see in the fall if Posa comes in too, you may have two guys that are potentially coming in right behind a really good starting group that can bring the same level of athleticism and playmaking following up as true freshmen.
A very good point. This room doesn't even have Mason Posa in it yet.
Yeah.
He's not even on campus. He obviously was a wrestler. He wanted to play out, and I think he won state or something, but good for him. Yeah. When he arrives, obviously he was the number one guy in the class last year for me. It was him and Hilton that I liked the most. And I hopefully they're both going to be really, really good. Jay in Toronto says, the DL will improve linebacker impact. Yes, agreed. If they don't get swallowed up as much like they have in the past, we should be very good. Jay also says there will be rush from the inside linebackers. Jason Geldon says defense can't be any worse. How can they not create more negative plays and turnovers than last year? Yeah, you're right, Jason. It really can't be any worse. I don't know if Justin talked about anything more last year than he did about the lack of tackles for loss. That was his favorite thing to talk about.
Sacks, turnovers. Basically anything that makes a defense good, we didn't do well. Stopping the run.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt about that. It's got to be better. God, 42-10 against Iowa. Anyway, I digress. Cornerback, Justin. How are you feeling about cornerback Stock up, stock down from when you went into spring?
I think I'm probably a little down. And the reason that I say that, I think the starting group is really good. But other than Agard, I'm not sure how I feel about the second group. I know he's popped a little bit. We're not hearing much about Jay Harper. We're not hearing much about some of the other guys. Oh, I will say this:
We've heard something about Latimer.
Harris Gaines had a good practice, and I believe the other the other ones. I'm trying to think.
Latimer's. I've heard some things about Latimer. Jameer Latimer. Yeah.
Scott had.
Oh, Jameer Scott.
Yeah, had a really good practice this last week. But those aren't guys that I trust as backups to those starters. Like, I don't want either one of the Agard I trust is coming in. Like, I think he can be a guy, if one of the two goes down, that's capable of giving you quality reps. It's going to be a step down, but I think he can give you quality reps. I don't have anyone else that I necessarily look at and I'm like, I feel really confident if somebody gets hurt that this guy can step in and not be a problem.
I mean, I feel like I'm hold to a little bit up on this because, like, you obviously got a lot of veterans in there. Jameer Latimer looks like he's also going to be a contributor. I hear you on the young guys, but I think the fact that we're hearing anything about Agard at all is a good thing. We expected Agard to be good, but yeah, I'm kind of a more of a hold on here. I think this is a strong position for us. I think coming into the spring, I felt this way. Nothing to me has really changed how I feel about the cornerbacks for me. I think I'm pretty much where I am. But still lots to still work on here. You're right about the depth though. The depth is going to be a concern that has to be addressed. Let's move to safety. Where are you at on safety? This is an interesting one.
I'm kind of in the same ballpark there. Like this, if we were looking long-term, it would probably be something that I feel better about. I do think both Emmerich and Dean are going to be, I think they have a chance to be really good high-end starters by the time they leave here. But I look at it and I'm kind of afraid if you have either Zachman or Brown go down, I don't know if we have a guy that we feel really confident going into that room and being a player. Now, there's some guys that have some upside in Trainer and Young, but I don't know if they're necessarily guys that we would say they could step in and that we're not afraid that they could get exposed at this point yet. And maybe that in the fall that might change. But as of right now, I think that there's some questions there that I think we're still waiting to hear answers on. The young guys in a year or two, I feel great about.
Yeah, fair point. It remains to be seen how they'll do at this level of competition, Trainer and Young. But I'm up on this position group because of what I've heard about Dean and Emmerich. I think that's actually really exciting. And Young, to an extent, I think has been there as well. I think that ultimately you've got two good starters. If we get production, I guess for me, the way I look at a lot of these things is if I'm hearing good stuff coming out of that freshman group, a guy that looks like he's really trying to work their way into his way into the rotation, to me, that screams stock up for me because you never know coming into the spring. Like remember how excited we were about Jamel Howard when he first got here, and then we literally didn't hear a peep out of the spring. And like that's what I worry about. I worried about that with Agard. I worry about that with Dean and Emmerich and even the linebackers. Like when I hear the good stuff come out, I'm like, okay, this room really has the ability to grow. So I'm up on the safeties. I'm happy with what we're seeing here. I think it's rounding out. I think overall. Let me hit you with this overall defense because we've kind of been a bit up and down so far on defense. Where are you at overall right now? Coming into spring to now, how are you feeling about the defense in general?
I feel more confident that the defense will be solid this year than I probably did coming into the spring. I think the news that I've heard coming out about the defensive line has made me feel a little less anxious about what the defense is going to be. I still don't. I hesitate to say that they could be really good because I don't think that we can look at anything that we see in the spring and really, take much from it to that extent. But I'm hopeful that we seem to have far more depth and we seem to have bodies that actually make sense to what we want to try and accomplish with the defense this year. So I feel better about what we're set up to do.
Yeah, I'm going to hold steady on the defense overall. I do feel good. I do feel good about the D line, but again, I need to see it a little bit more because when going up against our offense, we'll see. Right, last year we saw similar things. So I'm a little bit hesitant to make too many leaps there.
Jay in Toronto, heard anything about Dunn? Talking about Raphael Dunn. I know he popped a little early in one of the early practices. I haven't heard much about him. It's the thing is with him, you really have to kind of question what his role is going to be with some of the changes that were made defensively. The dollar position, I'm not sure how much that's going to be used with some of the changes that they've made. And I think that that's really where he profiles best. He may end up transitioning into more of like a roving kind of linebacker going forward, if anything. But I hesitate to look at him as somebody that I would say is a guy who I really trust as a safety, like a straight up safety. I think he's a guy that if you look at him as a linebacker safety hybrid, I like his skill set. More of like a guy who can cover tight ends and stuff like that.
Sure. Well, and quickly with special teams, anything you read about that you feel like stock up down on special teams?
It sounds like we've been hearing that they've consistently been hitting their kicks, which is a plus, but I thought they were doing that to a fair extent last year. So until it's happening in the season, I'm not going to do much. And I'm assuming that punting is still on par with where he's been as a plus.
Yeah. I also haven't really heard anything there. So I'm pretty much a hold on that in general. So kind of wrapping up a little bit of this discussion, Justin, what do you want to see what do you want to read about more in the last week? And specifically, since you're going to the practice next week, what are you looking at? What are you looking for? Sure. What do you want to see? We're going to talk about it. Obviously, you're going on Saturday, so we'll talk about it on our Sunday show. But what do you want to see?
Sure. One of the things I want to preface is just how many of these true freshmen are finding their way into the two deep, it sounds like. We're hearing about quite a few guys that are early enrollees that are finding their way into the second team reps, which is a big deal. That's not that common. You have to be kind of proving yourself in spring ball to be starting to steal those reps. Nolan Davenport, I know at right tackle, has been stealing some reps of the second team. I think that second team offensive line is a work in progress, but I love seeing the guys that have some physical talent. It sounds like Hardy Watts has been in there a little bit, and at guard has been getting some rolling with the second team. Obviously, both safeties have been finding some time on the field with that group. Eugene Hilton has obviously been playing a ton. He's actually stole first team reps a few times. So you have some guys coming in with this group that you can really look at and say, it feels like we may have really hit on this class, in that we didn't see this many guys last year finding their way into the two deep. We had a couple of guys, Mendel, Haywood, a couple other guys. The running backs obviously were kind of, bouncing in there a little bit, but there wasn't that many that we saw right off the bat that were jumping in. And it seems like there's more of that. Even Clayton has gotten some second team reps, which everyone knows I'm super high on him. And it sounds like he's potentially going to be in the role for a guy as a pass rusher this year.
I mean, that would be fantastic. Seeing Clayton as a pass rusher that was actually getting snaps on the field.
He's got the best twitch of anybody that we have. Yeah. And Cheeks is maybe the only other guy that I think is in the ballpark.
I think you bring up a good point about the youth. I mean, ultimately, that is what I'm looking for as well. We've talked a lot about these classes the last couple of years. That's pretty much been exactly what, has been sort of holding us on to what Luke Fickell's doing. It's not the play on the field. We haven't seen
absolutely
anything on the field that gives us, like excitement about the Fickell era. But the recruiting classes give us a ton of excitement. Yeah. And you saw a little bit of that last year. Now you're seeing it more. The more his classes work their way into the starting lineup, that's when we have to see it work on the field. And if it doesn't with these classes, that's the end of the Luke Fickell era. That's the reality of the situation.
Absolutely.
And it's critical that happens. So I'm looking for that as well. Your biggest area of concern right now, Justin, is what?
Probably outside linebacker. I need to see two guys step up. Words cannot express how different this defense would look if you had two guys on the edges that are capable of being 6 or 7. I'm not talking 10 sack guys, but like 6 sack guys. You have two guys that are capable of getting that level of disruption, and we go from being awful last year to probably being top 40, top 50 in total defense. And until we see that, it's going to be hard, because we saw the one big thing I'll say. I know we were in those games against Penn State and Oregon. I don't feel like if those teams had to play 4 downs to get a score late in the game, that we would have been able to stop them, because I don't think we would have been able to get home or cause a negative play, and giving them an extra down to actually try and make it happen. I think they would have been able to make it happen.
Yeah. Like, so for me, I agree with you, by the way. I think outside linebacker is where I would be most concerned about. I'm a little concerned about the O-line right now, just because of Kevin Haywood's injury.
I trust Blazek there a little bit more. I think he can make them at least functional. Very
good point. Yeah, for sure. And he should. Jason Geldon, how did you guys like the John Gruden pep talk this past weekend? I disagree. I mean, look, I think it's okay. So if you haven't watched this, I did retweet it earlier today. You can check out my Twitter and you can see it there. But I think it sounded very canned. It sounds like he's somebody who walks into every locker room that he does this with, and he just says these 4 things. Look, if it gets you hyped up, cool. Okay. I'm not buying into it.
But I'm not taking it into like he's like somehow got this invested interest in, Wisconsin. But you could feel the energy coming into it. Like the players were clearly buying into it. But let's be honest, he's not invested in Wisconsin. Like that's probably is a similar speech that he's given to 10 other teams this offseason.
Exactly what I said. Yeah, it doesn't. There was no authenticity to it, I guess is what I'm saying. And Brian agrees with me. He says the Gruden pep talk was He's done it a million times. I've literally seen the same speech with the Raiders when he was there. That's why to me it didn't really get me jacked up. But
it's a nice experience for the players.
If the players like it, yeah, you're right. It's John Gruden. It's a guy who's won a Super Bowl. Like, yeah, I get it, right? That's fine, and there's no doubt about that. Okay, so we talked about the biggest area of concern. Coming into the spring, Justin, I'm pretty sure we both said that our top unit that we were most confident in was the O-line. What is your top unit now? Because it's probably not the O-line anymore.
That's really interesting. I would say
I'll let you think about it, and I'll answer first. For me, it's 2. It's really both, and it's running backs and wide receivers.
Okay.
Because I think that you talked about it a lot. Jaden Ballard and Eugene Hilton both adding to what we already have with Vinny and Tretch and these guys makes the receiving core really good. And what I heard from Ryan about Dylan Jones, that gave me a lot of excitement. Go check out his show that he talked about Dylan Jones a lot. So yeah, I'm really, really happy with both of those groups. And I kind of feel like those might be the 2 best groups on our team.
I would say inside linebacker, and I would say running back and wide receiver are probably the other 2.
Inside linebacker is a good one. Yes.
I legitimately think that those 2 guys can be – I don't think they'll get the hype that they probably deserve in the conference unless they are really disruptive. But I think they're going to be absolute tackle machines, and I think that they're going to cause some plays where their speed and athleticism is going to allow them to cause some havoc, even if it's not in the backfield.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good one. I think that's a really good one. I wanted to finish off talking about some recruits again, because I wasn't with you guys when you talked about Carmelo Reed and Carson Elam. Is it Elams? I don't know how we're saying his name. Elams. All right. I'm really bad with pronunciations. I will say this. I love the fact that we are recruiting my home state of Indiana very strongly, by the way. Look at guys like Eugene Hilton, Nazai Davis, guys like Carson Elams, of course, and Tayshawn Bardo's already. Yeah, I'm really happy about the Indiana connection. Mm-hmm. So those 2 guys, interested to hear. I haven't heard exactly what you've said about them, but Carmelo Reed, I really like, by the way. I mean, I think he's got really raw tools, 6'7", 250. He's a guy that can easily hit that close to that 300 frame. I mean, he's got the frame to put on really 280. Good weight.
I figured he'd be in that.
And see, so I really like that. He's very violent. He's very quick, a little raw technique wise, but I just feel like he's one of those guys that really could develop into a potential star. Yeah. The other one that we got last week, Carson Elam's cornerback out of Fishers. Fine with him. Nothing really jumped off the page at me. I think I like his vision. I like his closeout speed. But I think he's one of those guys where I'm ready for the next highlight film, right? When that highlight film comes out, we can kind of get a big sense. He's a small guy. He plays a little small. Yeah. He's 6 feet. I have nothing really jumped off the page at me.
He's light. He legitimately, from an athleticism standpoint, I think that there's some similarities in terms of his fluidity to Jamari Washington last cycle. Washington is way more physically developed.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's much more physical. He was carrying, I think, a legit 180 plus. I believe this kid's in the 170 range, maybe even lighter, and that's 6 foot. He's pretty lean. He's going to have to – he's a willing hitter, but he's a guy who's got to put on at least 15 pounds of muscle. Like he's undersized for his build. He's going to have to get a lot more physical.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just a guy that I feel like doesn't really jump off the page as someone I'm really, really excited about, but hopefully he develops hopefully his next,
I like the tools, but yeah, he's got a lot of work to do.
Yeah. I think when I look at this class right now, with Reed, Bardo, Hopkins, Elams, and Novak, I think obviously Hopkins is a guy that I think could definitely make that leap up to the 4-star, as well as Carmelo Reed. I feel like he's a guy that really has that ability. So those two guys I would kind of earmark as potential jumps. Anyone else that you feel like could make that jump into the 4-star?
I think there's a lot of guys that we have for early visits coming in, but from the guys that are in there right now, I would say I'm not sure. Like Hopkins is a guy I think legitimately has that chance, and I think that he probably does end up a 4-star.
Yeah.
I think the physical tools dictate that with him. Unless he's a train wreck at modern day, I just don't see him going down. And I think he's going to be much improved, honestly, there. Reed, I actually agree with you. I think I said, for me, they put him anywhere between an 88 and a 91. I think he fits in that range. It's really going to probably depend on his senior film. He's a guy who I think could develop quite a bit coming onto his senior film, where he just gets more comfortable. And if Elams can be a guy who ends up getting some weight on going into his senior year, his film could really jump. Like if he gets physically stronger and it plays up his speed a little bit, he's a guy who could really pop on his senior film as he physically matures. But a lot of the guys that we have coming in, the running backs, some of the guys that we're after, I really like. If they get Latimer, Amari Latimer, I watched his film and he's the closest thing to us getting a Georgia back that I think I've ever seen. Like he reminds me a ton of who's the back that played for Cleveland? That's from there. I can't think of his name right now. Totally blanking on it. But anyways, he legitimately runs. He runs with a lot of physicality, and he's a guy who has really good burst and is fluid. And then you have a guy like Chubb. Yeah, Nick Chubb.
Nick Chubb.
He reminds me of Nick Chubb. And Pettit, the wide receiver that they have that they're going after, is another one that I look at and I'm like, he looks like an SEC wide receiver. Like Wisconsin doesn't normally get opportunities at those guys. Those guys are going to be 4-star guys by the time all's said and done. And if Wisconsin could lock them up, I think that they're the type of guys that I don't think the class is going to potentially be as good as what the last couple have been. But I think that they could find 4 or 5 guys that you look at and be like, these are guys their ceiling is being stars.
Well, we definitely need that running back. So if it is Latimer, that's great. But we definitely need running backs in this class. Like that must be a priority.
I like the guys they're targeting in general. Yeah. He would be far and away the best one that they get.
Agreed. All right, we'll end the show there. Justin, final thoughts or anything before we close the show today?
Yeah, I think again, just going into it, I know we talked about everything about this team. People are going to think that we're way too high on them. It's not about being high. It's about, are we seeing things that give us at least some hope for positivity going forward? And I like this team is very much in prove-it mode right now. Mm-hmm. So what you want to take away from it is we're not hearing any things that make us say there's not an opportunity for them to get better this year. And that's really all I want to take away from spring It doesn't sound like it's a train wreck. We sounds like the offense is far and away better than where it was the last couple of years. Like it's cohesive and seems like they're actually making progress, which is something that I think we struggled with the last couple of years in spring ball. And you feel a lot better about just the offense knowing what it's supposed to do heading into the fall, which just helps everything get better overall for the team if that's the case.
The Longo experiment definitely did not work. I will leave you with this question here. Marcus J on Twitter asked us this question. Where is this team not better than last year? Feels like in almost all position groups as are good or better and much better at key positions like D-line and quarterback. I think this is where people were asking for my positivity. This is the kind of comment I feel like when you look at it, because again, we were focused really on coming into the spring, stock up or stock down. When you look at this team and you take a step back and you look at last year to this year, you really struggle to find a position group that's not better. And you really do. Like where are you finding it? Because I mean, you could maybe argue that safety, obviously we're losing Hunter Wohler. Okay. That's fair. That's a fair one. But quarterback, no one's arguing there. Running back, wide receiver, offensive line, maybe because of loss of Nelson. Okay. That's fair. Now potentially with Haywood's injury. But on the defensive side of the ball, you're feeling better about the line. You're feeling better about the inside linebackers, better probably about the outside linebackers as well. So it's a really good point. And that's where I feel like where I'm at right now coming out of spring is because out of spring, once next weekend's over, we're looking ahead to the fall. We're going to be looking into the summer. We're going to start our Know Your Foe series. We're going to be really diving in and looking at next season. And I do have some hope for sure. The schedule's absolutely brutal, but we are better at a lot of the positions. So as Marcus J properly points out, like it's really hard to find an area that we're not better in. And that gives me a lot of hope.
Yeah. And one of the things that I brought up with Ryan when we were talking on one of his shows this last week was I said, what we want to see is we want to see this team look like if Alabama or Michigan or Ohio State or Oregon comes in with their C+ game, that this team can make them pay for that and is capable of hurting them if they don't play with effort. And that's what I think we want to see this year. We want to see this team look like it understands what it's supposed to do when it's on the football field. And that if a team doesn't come in playing with intensity, that they are capable of executing and punishing a team for that. And that's what I want to see this year. And I think that that's a possibility based off of what they've brought in. Now, if it all comes together, maybe you upset somebody. I don't know what to make of this because there's always the chance that they have a game where they have a couple letdowns too. But I want it to look like if those teams don't take us seriously, that we can punch them in the mouth. And we didn't have that the last couple of years.
It's well said. It's well said. We are poised for improvement. It's a tougher schedule, but we're poised for improvement. And listen, this is the time of the year where we do have that hope. This is the time of the year we can be excited about it. So as we approach the fall, my hype level is going to continue to increase. I mean, who knows what I'm going to say my record's going to be when the time comes. But we'll leave it at that. We will be back again next week for more news and notes about spring football. I want to talk more basketball next week too. The transfer portal treated us pretty well. I want to look at kind of where we're ranking ourselves and as far as that goes as well. But with that, we'll talk again next week on Wisconsin.
On Wisconsin.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoy the show, subscribe to our YouTube channel at The Bucky Report or The Bucky Report Podcast from wherever you get your content. Until next time, on Wisconsin.